All right. We're going to call to order the Bedford Township Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for June 1st. We're going to first start off by an introduction of the members. I'll start first. This is Jake Lake, Chair.
Kyle Durst, Vice Chair.
Rick Steiner, Township Board.
Dennis Jenkins, Planning Commission.
Jeff Wilson.
Jody Rector, Planning and Zoning.
Dennis Kohler, Building Inspector.
Phil Goldsmith, Township Attorney.
Karen Kincaid, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you. Next, we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. So stand and face a flag if you have one. I pledge allegiance
to the flag,
United States
of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is roll call. Karen, if you call the roll, please.
Mr. Jenkins,
Here.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Mr. Dersch,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Excuse me. I'd like to recommend that we adjust the agenda under new business. I'd like to move item C to the first item for new business. All those in favor or any discussion?
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. Reason we're moving it?
It would be the item that would probably take the least amount of time to discuss.
Okay, and the only reason I ask is I know Ms. Kincaid prioritizes zoning appeals as they come in, so.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, both applicants, the first and the third applicants have been notified and are aware that this is a possibility.
Great. Thank you, Karen. So we'll take a quick roll here. If please say aye if you approve.
Did we get a second, Jake?
Oh, I don't know that we did. Thanks, Rick.
I think we got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we will move item C to the first item of new business. Next item here is approval of the minutes of our March 2nd meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
I wasn't here, so I'm going to abstain.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, none opposed. Move on to new business, and we'll move item C up to first. So we'll look for someone to make a motion to open the public hearing regarding the appeal of Christopher Cole. And apologize if I get the name wrong. Zawiza on 7212 Kenilworth in Lambertville, a 6-foot height fence height variance to construct a 4-foot tall fence in the front yard located on a corner. Do you have a motion to open the public hearing?
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
And Mr. Chair, just a quick comment. We've found during township board meetings and budget meetings, it's good to try to keep yourself on mute as much as possible, especially when we're flipping papers.
Good call, Rick. Thank you very much, Mr. Steiner.
And then use the raise your hand function too. It helps.
Thank you, Mr. Steiner. So if we'll go on to the next piece here, Karen, if you would, if you've got the information you want to share with us, please.
Yes. Again, the applicant is Christopher and Nicole Zawaza. Owner is the same, the variance location 7212 Kenilworth, that is in Lambertville, on 0.45 acre R2A, single family residentially zoned. The applicant is seeking a plus or minus 6-inch height variance to construct a 4-foot fence in the front yard. The property consists of 0.45 acre and has 2 front yards, as it is located on a corner lot of Kenilworth and Wilshire. Per section 41912 fences, 2A, number 1, fences within a front yard shall not exceed 3.5 feet in height and shall be restricted to decorative fences. The applicant has submitted a letter stating they would like to install a split rail fence in a front yard on Wilshire. The applicant has stated due to a corner lot and having 2 front yards, the proposed fence would be installed 50 feet from the center of Wilshire to allow an area to have a shed, trampoline, and swing set, and it would provide an area to protect their children when outside. At this time, no letters or calls of objection have been received. However, the applicant has supplied a letter of no objection to the planning department signed by 5 neighboring properties.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Are the applicants on the phone, Christopher and Nicole?
Yep.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to add other than what Mrs. Kincaid has stated?
To be honest, we would like to go a foot higher, just to be on the safe side. And the draw line, 410, but I'll take it 4.5. When I was talking to Bedford fence, they said a 3-rail fence should only be 4 feet. I just want to be on the safe side because the neighbors across the street, when I measured that one, it was 4 feet high, 10 inches.
Mrs. Kincaid, I'll look to your direction.
The application and publication was for 6 inches. You may want to refer to our attorney, but I believe if we increase the variance request, we may have to publish again. Phil, do you want to comment on that?
Well, unfortunately, that is accurate because we're required by law to publish any request for variance, and the publication by law has to state what the variance is. If the variance being requested was less restrictive than what the ordinance called for, there would have to be no new publication. But this request now is more restrictive than what the publication put the public on notice of, and we have to, by law, notify all property owners within 300 feet plus the publication. So that being said, we could republish and have this heard at the hearing in July, or the applicant could decide to go forward with the 6-inch variance request and thus have a 4-foot fence. So that's what we're confronted with. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
Okay. I guess we'll just go 4 foot then.
I'm sorry, what was that, Mr. Zawilla?
We'll just go with 4 foot then.
Okay.
That's a huge. We don't want to wait until July. We want to wait till June. So I will just go with in the write-in and what the public has seen already.
Mrs. Kincaid?
If I may, could we offer clarification to the applicant where the fence is measured? Split rail fences tend to have posts that are taller than the actual rail. Would we measure the fence from the top of the post or from the top of the rail? So could the rail be 4 feet in height and the post extend beyond that where those pre-drilled holes already define the fence, or would the top of the post be the 4 foot that they would have to comply with?
Mr. Kohler, how would you measure that?
Unmute, Dennis. Dennis, you have to unmute.
Sorry. I followed the rules, I'm sorry. The biggest thing that I measure is for pool fences, and it's a 4-foot barrier. So I measure the wire, the top of the rail. But one could argue that the top of the posts is the top of the fence, but truly it's the posts in a split rail condition is the very small impact in the great grand scheme of things.
I agree. I think the measurement would go to the top of the top rail, or like Dennis said, where you put fabric on a split rail for barrier purposes. So the top rail would be the barrier there. So that would be the measurement I think we would go by for a split rail. That would be different for other types of fences, but for a split rail, I agree with Dennis.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
and I'll just speak as well. The number of years that I've been around, anytime we've had fence, I believe that we have also done that top rail, not the post. So I've been around about 50 to 75 years. I think Dennis has been around 75 to 100. So
Feels like
Dennis, so I think you've probably seen the same thing in all the years that your experience.
Yeah, it's odd because there are some 3 foot or some 3 rail split rails that actually are 4 foot to the top of the posts.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant Dennis Jenkins. You're
Dennis
too young.
Jenkins, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the fence ordinance has been an issue for many years. I never agreed with the 3.5 foot height limit. I don't know how that got put in there, but maybe something for the planning commission to look at so we don't have to do this again.
I think you broke up for quite a bit, Dennis. You said if they could put what in possibly in the future?
To change the height limit on the fences to 4 feet rather than 3.5. To get that
For the review our ordinance.
right, planning commission.
So for purposes of tonight's meeting, if the board is inclined to grant the requested variance, and if the board is inclined to measure to the top of the top rail for the 4 foot mark, we would put that in the motion, and then it would be part of the meeting minutes and then part of the record. That would provide clarification for the applicant.
Mr. Chair, with that clarification, if there's no objection, I'll make a motion on this.
well,
Excuse me. We have an open.
Ms. Kincaid?
Oh,
I'm
never
sorry,
mind, we
have
got
an
the
open
public hearing to close.
right now.
Oh.
We have to.
I'll
speak
take a motion to close.
Unless
Mr.
someone
Steiner. Do we have-
else is waiting.
Do we have support to close the public hearing?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, public hearing is closed. Okay, any further discussion, or we can entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, there's someone in the lobby. Is that the next applicant, or does someone want to speak on this issue?
Good question. How have these been handled for other meetings? If we've got people in the lobby, do we know who's waiting?
Have to go through George and ask.
Okay.
Okay,
Disregard, because we conduct public hearings on the BZI, I just wanted to make sure that someone didn't want to speak during the public hearing on this particular agenda item. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Goldsmith. Mr. Steiner,
I will make the motion to approve the 6-inch height variance to construct a 4-foot split rail fence in a front yard on property number 5802-265-057-00, otherwise known as 7212 Kenilworth, Lambertville, Michigan 48144. The rear yard is actually a front yard due to being on a corner lot. And that is the actual hardship. Being on a corner is why the request should be approved. It also is to help the applicant protect his family and protect his property for basically a separation on that back lot line because there's usually sidewalks and people walking, so it helps protect his backyard as well.
we have a motion. Is there any amendments, or do we have a second?
I'll support that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Motion support, Mrs. Kincaid, if you would.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Jenkins,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Dersch,
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye, motion is approved. Thank you. Good luck with your fence. All right, we'll move on
Okay.
to item A, which is the public hearing regarding the appeal of Patricia Linden at 2740 Concierge Road, Lambertville, Michigan, requesting a 160 plus or minus foot frontage variance and a 2.98 acre variance. Do we have the applicants on the phone now? No, okay, we will wait to, should we wait then, Karen?
If you want to, I guess it would be at the board's desire if they want to move on to the next item and then come back to this one.
I think if we have the folks on the line for item B, then I think maybe it's appropriate that we move on and we'll come back to A. Is that okay, since we already have the agenda approved?
Will we have all of them on the line now?
Okay,
Let's entertain 6B, then we'll come back to 6A.
okay. Thank you, George. Thank you, Mr. Goldsmith. Okay, well, seeing that we do not have the applicant on the line for item A, we're going to push that on pause, and we're going to move to item B. Mr. Steiner, is there something you need, or you have a question? Okay. We'll move on to item B then, and that will be the public hearing regarding the appeal of Brenda LePan at 9400 Jackman Road, Temperance, Michigan, requesting a 10-foot side yard setback variance and a 5-foot height variance for an accessory building in an R1 single-family residential zoning. Would anybody like to make a motion that we open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion. We open the public hearing for the property at 9400 Jackman Road, Temperance, Michigan.
Is there a second?
I'd second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Kincaid, if you would, please provide the information.
Yes, again, the applicant is Brenda LePan, 9400 Jackman Road, Temperance. The owner is the same. The property number is 0502010 with 10.06 acres in R1, single-family residentially zoned parcel. The applicant is seeking to construct a 36 by 72, a 2,592 square foot, 25 foot in height pole barn. The applicant has indicated in the submitted letter the increase in height of the accessory structure is to store a recreational vehicle and for an additional loft storage area. The applicant has requested a 10-foot side yard setback variance for the proposed location as stated in the letter. This distance from the property line would provide adequate distance to drive between the recently erected backyard prayer chapel and their pool fencing. Section 400.1903 accessory buildings, a parcel having more than 5 acres is permitted an unlimited amount of square footage and 20 feet in height, with a required side yard setback of 35 feet, thus requiring a 5-foot height variance and 10-foot side yard setback variance. It is noted on the submitted letter, the plans submitted are for a 40 by 60 Gambro wedding barn. However, the applicant has stated the proposed pole barn is for their own personal use, and the submitted rendering is an example only, and should the variance be granted, they will then move forward with plans. At this time, there have been no calls of objection to the request.
Thank you, Ms. Kincaid. Are the applicants on the phone, Ms. LePan?
Yeah.
Okay. What Karen stated there, is there anything else you'd like to add to what she had stated, or any other information you'd like to provide?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Is there also, do we have any Mr. Welling, do we have any other folks on for public comment? I would say yes, George.
Yeah, if they choose to speak on this agenda item during the public hearing, yes.
All right, we just, new caller to the line here. We are entertaining public comment on the appeal for Ms. LePan at 9400 Jackman Road for a 10-foot yard setback or side yard setback and a variance of 5 foot height variance on an accessory building. Are you in the line to comment on that particular item?
No, we're calling in for item 2.
No, we're on the agenda for item 2. We were just
Line.
couldn't get in.
Okay, okay. All right, I'll take care of that one. Okay, guys. So any other, I guess we still have an open public hearing. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, any discussion on this particular item or any questions for the applicant? I can start with some questions here if you guys don't mind. Ms. LePan, there was some information in there around keeping, I believe it's an access road back to where the barn is going to be placed or planned to be placed, that states you wanted to keep equidistance between a couple of other items in your yard. I believe was a fence for a pool and a wedding or a chapel. Do you mind explaining that a little bit more so we can understand? I've got a map, but I don't think it does it justice.
Okay. Yeah, we have around, in the back of our house, we have a pool and it has a fence around it. And hopefully you can kind of see that on the map. I'm sorry if it's not a very good drawing. And then, yeah, we just, I guess we also have a little chapel that is 10 by 16 that I have like records of phone calls. We hadn't required a permit for that when we had planned to build it, but just trying to keep things a little bit spread apart so that we can, drive and get things in the back of the barn and just kind of not sort of, I guess, also just so that it doesn't look like things are kind of crammed together. We want to keep things, looking, nice back there. And so that's all really is kind of spacing them out and being able to use it appropriately for the needed items.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins, you have a question?
Yeah, in Karen's analysis, she talks about a wedding barn and also the chapel. Is the wedding barn reference just referring to a style?
Yeah, we that was the only, I wanted to make mention of it, that it says that on the plans, and we have no desire to have a wedding barn. It's just the company that we're wanting to buy the kit from. The closest like shape was this called wedding barn, and we went and visited it, to make sure it was like the style of barn we wanted, but we do not have a desire to have a wedding business whatsoever. And the chapel is there because my father recently passed away a couple years ago, and my mom gave my sister and I some money and wanted to kind of see, rather than after she passed, she wanted to see what we would do, could do with our little bit of money before she died. And my parents always said, we pray together, we stay together. So I just wanted to have a little something back there that would honor them. And that's so, and we don't, yeah, I would think it would look like a wedding back there, but it's not what we want. It's not what we want. We don't desire to do that.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
I'm
that.
glad, yeah, glad to clarify, because I wouldn't want like a business, we don't believe in like having parties or drinking. That's just not us. We just, marriage is very sacred, so that we would not want like a wedding business, that's just not us, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Steiner.
Question for the applicant, a couple things. What is the actual distance? I was out on your property today, and what is the actual distance from the markers on which would be the north wall of the barn, from there to the chapel? The drawing we have says 25-foot minimum, but it looks like there's, gosh, well over 60, 80 feet or more between there.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm answering you correctly. That you're talking about the north side of the property to the chapel?
Not the fence side, the north side. To the chapel.
Yeah. Okay, the north side, I went out with a tape measure and measured that like 121 feet. I think that I also realized that it doesn't like add up in my very, crude drawing here. Like we have 265 total. So the chapel is approximately in the middle. So if we did the math, there'd be more like, I guess, 130-ish on each side of that. So is that what you're saying? I'm so sorry if I'm not understanding you correctly.
That's sort of where I'm trying to get. I just want to clarify because it says 25-foot minimum, but minimum doesn't really tell us. If there was a side lot line there, then we would have a requirement. And then there's usually also requirements between buildings.
Right.
So the other question I do have, are there any wells or leach fields or anything like that that would prohibit you from having the barn to the north? Or is that any reason that's making you push it closer to the side fence?
Okay. So we were thinking of having it be 25 foot from the south line. Is that,
right?
Are we on the same page?
Right.
Okay.
So is there, basically I'm looking for a reason why you can't go with the normal 35 feet other than you would just like it further away from the chapel. And that's why I asked if there might be a leach field in there or a well in there. Generally for a variance like this, there's got to be some kind of practical difficulty and also not a self-created difficulty. So I'm trying to find something there. I'll say right up front, I don't have a problem with the height variance.
Okay.
You have a lot of room there. You've got barriers with your trees to the east and to the south.
Okay.
Because I think I read you might want to store a camper RV there too at some point.
For
nearing. Right, and we know that of course takes taller side walls, and of course then that raises your roof and everything else. So I'm struggling to find something with that variance for that extra 10 feet to be taken off.
Okay. I don't know if this helps. It would get pretty crowded there. As far as just trying to get, implements, and because we're going to have the entrance, like storage entrance be in the back, again, to keep things looking good. So I just think that we've got a couple sets of stakes out there, and like we're working so hard to make the chapel look so beautiful, we just don't really want to put a building so close to it. And then the other thing, I don't know I don't know if this matters at all, but the purchase agreement with my name on it to be purchasing the 5 parcel store currently owned by Dave and Sheila Ramsey. So, you know, that is, that's just of note that it's my daughter and I that are purchasing that parcel. So kind of it will be, you know, owned by myself and my daughter also, as far as being so close to, you know, and it doesn't, the stakes, when I was out there, that tree line is very much, our property line is quite, you know, quite in their property line, which would then be my property line, is a little deceptive, because, you know, it's just kind of the trees have grown over and over, so.
Ms. LePan, are you,
Yeah.
do you have this on YouTube right now as well, live?
What, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you have this meeting live on YouTube as of right now?
Oh, no, I don't, but I can try. I'm just on my phone.
Okay. Well, I
I
was
didn't
asking,
know it
we're
was on-
getting a bit of feedback, so I was hoping that was why we're
Oh,
getting feedback. Okay.
I'm in a very quiet room. I thought it was on your end, the
Oh,
noise.
it may be. I'm just trying to figure it out. Okay, no problem. So yeah, I think what we're trying to assess for is, you know, we understand the 5-foot height variance. I think a lot of people get that, you know, with regards to large vehicles, it is difficult and you got to have higher sidewalls. What we're looking for to try to move along for an approval is why do we need a 10-foot variance? And typically it's something that's out of your own control, something that's already there on the property that would require you to move to where a variance would be needed. So that's where we're trying to ask a lot of questions to try to tease that out.
Right.
So those are the reasons we're asking a lot of those questions. Is there anything else you could think of that would require to move the barn 10 feet to the south as opposed to 10 feet to the north to be in compliance?
So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a little worried about, I don't know if you see the way the water is back there, that part of Clink Lakes definitely starts to go further east, the further south you go, you know. So to try to stay a little bit away from that probably is another thing. You wouldn't want to be flooded or anything, you know, with the barn there. And again, I guess just the whole swing of thing, the whole, you know, swing of a large RV trying to get around there, you know, and that is, you know, it just seemed pretty tight. Honestly, I tried it with, I staked out I'm so sorry because I had to be at work for this. So I'm actually at work. I can't walk outside right now, but it was looking quite close to me. Try to get where those green stakes were. It was really looking like that would not be, you know, so good to try not to hit things, making that swing there. Okay.
So I think what I'm hearing are two things then. So yeah, you know, I noticed that you have Clink Lakes there in the in your map, and I'm not sure, you know, what the drainage situation is like that, or how likely it is that could flood, but that could be a concern. And then also safety perspective, if you do put an RV in your barn, you know, does the 10 feet to the south provide access that's safer from a drivability aspect? Those are two items I think we can discuss.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm trying to think, you know, and I don't know, Mr. Kohler, if you've got any insights on those lakes, you know, from a from previous building back there or whatever, if that's prone to flooding or if you know anything around that nature?
To be totally honest with you, I don't know how the topography is right there at the barn. I know the swimming pool, we didn't have any water issues, but I don't know how the backyard actually sits with the proposed barn location. I can answer for the 25 foot on there. I wrote that on myself, just on the site plan as a minimum. So it's not truly any measurement that she put on there. So the 25 feet and the 35 feet, those are my notes, not her notes. But I don't know about the lake and the drainage.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
question again for the applicant. Did you say that the main opening of the barn would be on the east end of the building? Against the
Like to
wooded
enter-
side?
Yeah, we'd like to enter back through there, with, for bigger to be, again, we're trying just to really honestly to make it look good, I don't want it to look junky, and sometimes, just being able to come in through the back and not be, so we would need to make a swing there a bit.
Okay, so where I'm going with this is, you mentioned the Clink Lakes and the water, but yet you want to put it approximately within 25 feet of the woods, which that's not a problem because it's not a side setback. But unless you're going to cut the woods down, if you're going to pull an RV or something in there with a pickup truck, 25 feet between the building and the woods to enter and access is not enough room. Even think about if you're pulling a travel trailer, that the pickup truck's going to be 25 feet. I don't know what length travel trailer or RV, that's going to be difficult. So I'm not even so sure that pushing your barn back as far to the east is that you're talking that you want to do that. And then the Clink Lakes really doesn't have an effect there, or I don't see the Clink Lakes having an effect to the south. If you moved it north, I don't see, unless you've got water literally coming through those woods. I mean, if you think about it, if you move that barn 10 feet to the north and it's going to get wet, your chapel's going to be underwater too.
Yeah, I think the 25 feet from the wooded area, I think that could certainly change if we needed to bring it not so far east. And I don't know if I knew when I drew this, like if that was specific, but we're trying to plan what we thought we would do, but I see what you're saying, if it would need to come further to the west. But again, I don't know, I think we would need a decent swing between the chapel still.
Yeah, so like I said, you don't have a problem from a zoning standpoint of the east-west dimension. I just made that as a reference point. The problem is that southern dimension between the barn and the side lot line.
Okay.
And again, as Mr. Lake stated, that's where we're sort of struggling. We're looking for something that, again, if you said there was a leach field or a well right there that you couldn't use that, and that's the reason you wanted to push it south, that's sort of, part of a reasoning there. But I'm not hearing that there's any kind of issue like that.
Okay. Yeah, it does get, it gets wetter back there. I think the golf course might have done, I don't know, but my neighbor says like the golf course may have done something. Ever since I've lived there, it didn't used to get as wet as it does. So if I, and then it does curve backward, just topography wise. So That seemed like the right thing to do. I'm sorry if I don't know everything, but
That's
it
okay.
seemed like the right thing to do. And again, just trying to like not cram it, not cram it so close and hurt something. And then, I guess I don't know. This is what I don't know. Like if we are purchasing that part anyway, we're kind of going to be near our own line. I don't know if that would have to be something that gets adjusted later, or, for having like that line moved, something. I don't understand that. I'm so sorry for not knowing that.
No, that's not a problem. We don't expect you to know all that. And if you did purchase that property, each property has its own set of regulations they have to follow. So unless you did a split on that property, which I'd have to look back here and see, you are in an you're R1A. So you've got 265 foot of frontage. So that could be something down the road, but we can't do that today based on a what if.
Sure. Yeah, we are definitely purchasing it. It's just a matter of closing. It's a cash sale and we're purchasing it, but yeah, I mean, I think that it could just potentially harm a very beautiful chapel by, needing to get that close to it with things. So.
Well, I'm looking for some additional help from my fellow board members.
Right. At this point, I'm other than drainage or, potential safety concerns with accessing the barn, but based on where the barn door would be, those are, where the barn door is being placed for the safety concern is kind of a self-created one based on putting the barn door in the back and swinging around with the limited amount of footage between the wooded area and the barn. The 10 feet, it is right now what feels to be a preference for aesthetics, and I can understand, people want to have a nice looking backyard, but based on the regulations or the ordinance of the zoning, 35 feet is the requirement. So I think I'm at a place where I don't know that I could approve or vote yes on an approval to have the 25 or the 10-foot variance on the side yard setback. Yeah, looking for more discussion from the board, though, if there's anybody else that wants to bring some information to light. Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I guess I would tend to agree with Mr. Steiner's comments about the need for as we talked about the practical difficulty, and just one that I guess maybe if we could clarify that with the proximity to the wedding or the chapel or the prayer chapel, what is the requirement in terms of distance between buildings like that? Do we know? Is there?
That was my minimum. My minimum is 25 feet based on the table 1903. So it is a 25-foot minimum setback. She has 100 and some, she said.
Yeah, I was just thinking there potentially would be, if you're looking at some sort of difficulty, if by moving the barn 10 feet to the north would then cause an additional issue by being too close to that chapel, that maybe that's something that needed to be looked at. But if that's not the case, I suppose that's not applicable.
Right. It almost seems like the tall doors would actually be on the north side and the south side. Because if you look at it, it look like the loft walls are only 10 foot or 12 foot tall, 10 foot tall. So her tall doors, the way she's got the barn drawn, are going to actually be on the sides. The 16-foot doors are going to go to the north and south, the way she's got it sitting. Because if you look the way the vents are, her short doors are going to be north and south, east and west. Her east and west walls will have 10-foot doors, but her north and south walls will have the 16-foot doors. So if you look at the way the barn is built.
I guess I'm confused on the drawing, Dennis. I thought it looked like the short walls would be on the north and south sides, and
No, the gable's running, the gable's running east and west, which means my tall walls will be the north wall and the south wall. So she needs clearance, to me, she'll need clearance from the barn and the chapel to be able to pull a camper in there and back up. I think the camper's gonna go the 36-foot wise, because if not, then she's only got 10-foot doors on those loft ends. Usually those barns are all, the vents are shorter there on the ends, on the gable ends.
so
So you see a 16-foot wall height, there'll be some openings between two lofts normally, right in the middle.
I don't know if you're looking at a different picture, Dennis, because what I'm looking at in this drawing, the length of the building is going to be east-west,
Right.
Correct.
and it's 36, it'll be 36 foot wide. So your gable
Yeah.
peaks are going to be on the east and west, not the north-south, and that's where your tallest doors are going to be.
No, the tallest doors would still be in the middle. If you look at this cross section of the barn, you take a look, your loft heights are 10 foot tall. So your lofts are usually on the ends of the barn. So the middle of the barn is where the tall doors are. And she's got a drawing of the gable, I mean, the cross section of the barn shows a 40-foot barn, and she's got a 36, because these aren't truly drawings of her barn, but they're suggestions. But so your smaller vents are actually gonna be lofts, usually on both sides of the barn. You know, the east side and west side of the barn would have lofts, and then the tall doors would come in from the north side and the south side. The 16-foot wall height is gonna be on the north and the south sides of that barn.
I see what you're saying, Dennis, with the lofts on the east and the west end.
Yes,
With overhead clearance to get a vehicle in, and the vehicle would have to be in the middle going north-south.
correct. The middle of the north-south is where it looks to me like you'd pull a big vehicle in. Now, again, her drawings might change different. I mean, like I said, again, we're just working off drawings she submitted.
Right. Well, I guess then we have to clarify that with the applicant. Then if you're saying that the tall doors are not going to be on the east end, as she mentioned, it's going to be on the north side of the building.
Ms.
So-
LePen, are you still on?
Yes,
Could you answer that question for us? Where exactly would the door to access the building, or where you'd pull the RV in? What side of the barn would that be on?
so again, we were waiting everything on this meeting in order to go ahead and get plans drawn. We're, not barn experts. I'm hearing you as far as where the vents and stuff have to be. We've just kind of submitted what they had available. I don't know where they're going to tell us our doors are have to be. I thought they would be on the
East and west.
east,
East
But
and west. If they're on the east
now
and west, yeah, they could be on the east and west, but the cross section you show us has got a 6x10 oak beam going right at 10 foot. So you
Right.
couldn't get a tall door on the cross section of the barn you submitted. But I'm
Right,
not saying
yeah.
you couldn't design a building to put a tall door there, but what you have submitted shows a short wall.
Yeah.
So I was trying to help you out and give you a reason why you need more space between the chapel and the barn.
I think that's very possible, because we just haven't been able, it would cost a lot. We were waiting for this meeting because it would cost a lot of money to get the plans drawn, and again, not like a barn expert. So I think that what you're saying as far as needing to put them there, just my limited barn knowledge, I wish I knew more, but it's very possible they're going to tell us that with our plan, but we didn't want to, invest a lot of money if we weren't going to be able to get it, so, That's very possible. And just, I guess, even if we put it in the back, it seems like the swing would still be the same, you know, there. You guys probably know better from pulling things and stuff, but just, I guess either way, it feels like it's gonna, I just don't want to hit something, you know. And I noticed like on the accessory table for 3 acres, you just have to be 25 feet. And does that, I guess I don't know how that, I guess why that goes up. I'm not sure, like why that part goes up for the,
From the property line, 25 feet,
yeah,
because it's a
Yeah.
4,500 square foot building. So it's actually smaller buildings have smaller setbacks.
Mhm.
So.
all right. Thank you for explaining that to me. Thank you. I'm sorry.
So, Mr. Chair, I've got another quick comment here from Ms. LePan. And this is just an off-the-wall suggestion. I know you said that you're buying the property to the south side,
Yes,
and you talked about a potential lot line, and you
Yes.
said that's happening fairly quick.
it is.
So I'm looking at this, and again, I don't know how fast, when you say quick, if that's next week, next month, 2 months.
This month, June
Okay.
19th would be the closing date.
So here's just an off-the-wall suggestion that would eliminate this entire variance request except for the height. Is
Okay,
if you're buying that property,
yeah,
and if you possibly were to request to split a section in that part of the other lot
okay. Okay,
and move that lot line, you wouldn't have to have a variance at all.
okay, all right. I didn't know how that worked. That's totally fine. Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
And
I
then-
don't know what I don't know what a split involves. Like if you, like, would we have to just kind of go, forgive me for not knowing that, we just go through and request, just the lot line to be changed?
You'd have to request a lot split.
Okay,
Karen or Dennis could probably tell you a little more detail.
thank you.
But again,
That'd-
I see Karen wants to explain that, looks like.
Land divisions are actually handled through the assessing department.
Okay,
The information can be provided by them. I believe it would require a survey. The one thing that I would want to check is to make sure there is adequate frontage and acreage on that parcel to the south. Given the size that are typically in this area, there probably is, but I don't have that information in front of me to make sure that there is enough acreage and width for her to shift property lines.
Now, the one drawing we have looks like those properties are 265, and if it's an R1,
Requirement of 90 feet.
It's required 90.
so, you know, they've got plenty of room at that point.
Mhm.
It's just
So
a thought.
really, we're kind of at 2 options for Ms. LePan. She could kind of withdraw tonight from her request and wait until the closing of the property, work with the assessing department, create a split, which looks like that could be a viable option, and therefore it would mitigate needing a side yard setback. The other option is to continue through tonight. Now, I have a question probably for Ms. Kincaid and Mr. Goldsmith here around if we went through with this tonight and we put together a practical difficulty that says based on the door being on the north side of the barn is a requirement to have that 10-foot variance. If the barn design didn't have the door there, would the applicant be out of compliance then with the variance?
And if you made that a condition,
Right.
well, if you made that a condition and the large door was not on the north elevation, And if that was a reason for one of the practical difficulties for the variance, yeah, then you would be out of compliance. What you might, in terms of doing a land division, you have to look at the other parcel, as Karen suggested. I don't know if there are other buildings which would set you up for a side yard setback issue with buildings that might be on the side parcel. There's a lot of variables to be considered before you go down the land division road. So that's number one. With respect to practical difficulties on this parcel, for the orientation of the building, the orientation of the doors, sufficient room for ingress and egress up to the building. One thing that I heard throughout this discussion that was a reoccurring theme are Clinks Lakes. I'm very familiar with that area. And I'm also familiar with the topography in that area, and it undulates and it tends to decrease from Jackman Road the farther east you go. So one potential practical difficulty could be topography. And if it makes sense to orient this barn where the applicant has requested it, because the topography is higher in that area and would present a better building site in the event of flooding that would creep from the Clink Lakes to the west toward that structure. That's one thing to think about. The other thing that has been discussed is orientation of doors, and I think Mr. Kohler has identified it. If the Gabriel ends are going to be east-west, then because of what's shown on these diagrams, then the high doors that would allow access for recreational vehicles and taller vehicles would have to be on the north and south. So that's some food for thought for the board.
Thank you, Mr. Goldsmith. Mr. Steiner, did you have a question, or is your hand just up?
My hand is still up by accident there. Yeah, it's, again, as I said earlier, with the lakes, if the lakes are part of the issue, those lakes, if they flood, they're going to come due west. So whether the barn is 10 foot further to the north or where it's proposed, that whole area would be soaked. So I don't know.
The curve of the lake definitely goes more eastward the more southward you get. That's kind of, you can see that like on a Google map from above and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It does do that, which, I don't think I've seen that very well, but the water is closer if you go more north.
Okay.
The water comes more westward when you go north.
So for a practical difficulty, we do have two options kind of on our table. Just speaking to the board here, is a potential motion for a practical difficulty. The other option, obviously, if Ms. LePan so chooses, there's the potential to investigate further the option of she's buying the neighboring property, potentially doing a split. Obviously, there's things that would be needed to investigate before that would be obviously something that could be proceeded, but that is as an option to investigate that further. So really we've kind of got three things out there on the table, or maybe a combination of two of the practical difficulties with Clinks Lake and egress, but obviously we said the egress was due to the door being on the north side. It sounds like then a door would have to be on the north side should we approve it based upon that and the egress into the building. So that's where we're at as a board right now. I don't know if anyone is prepared potentially to make a motion. Not sure that we are. Ms. Kincaid?
Did we close the public hearing?
We did, yes. All right. I'm not sure which further discussion we need. Either put a motion out there that we cannot approve one of the variances. Maybe we can approve one of the we can approve one variance and maybe not approve the other variance. That is also another likelihood of this request as well. Ms. Kincaid?
Jody did provide me with an aerial of the property to the south. It is somewhat irregularly shaped in that there is a narrower frontage than there is, and then it widens out in the rear, which may or may not lend itself because of the narrower frontage with the home located on the lot. It may or may not lend itself to shifting any property from that south property to the north property. It's hard to tell with this aerial, but the home does appear to be relatively close to the property line.
You're talking about the neighboring property,
Yes.
9364 Jackman?
Yes, to the south, the frontage is narrower than the rear of the property, but it would have to be split from the front, possibly, to not create a further irregular shape. That would be up to the assessor to determine if you could only take a portion of that north property line and shift it, or if it would require the entire north property line be shifted.
So that's more food for thought, Ms. Lapone, of what your options are there. So I think we've got a motion potentially on the height variance, and it sounds like we're still thinking through what a practical difficulty would be for the side yard setback variance.
Okay.
Is there any other further discussion the group would like to have on this, or are we ready for a motion on either of the variance requests? Seeing that we have none, does anyone want to make a motion on at least one of the variances at this point? All right. No, I cannot make a motion. I would. All right. Mr. Jenkins.
Yeah, I can make a motion on the height variance, but not on the side yard variance. I can make a motion that we grant the 5-foot height variance. That it's consistent with the, and that's it.
Okay, we've got a motion on the height variance. Is there any friendly amendments and or a second? Second
for discussion.
Yes, Mr. Steiner.
I just pulled up a Google map too, and it actually looks like if you stayed to that southern corner, you'd be closer to Clink Lake than away from it. It looks like you'd be getting away from Clink Lake if you went to 35 feet. So that's why I support the second Mr. Jenkins motion.
So we have a motion and we have a second on the height variance. Ms. Kincaid, can we move along with just that one for now and then still have the discussion on the side yard variance request?
Do you plan to do that this evening?
You have to.
I'd like to finish that up this evening.
You
Mr.
have-
Goldsmith?
I mean, because you would have to deny it unless you plan to do it this evening. You would have to, or either approve it or deny it, or you'd have to make some sort of a motion on it this evening.
Or would it have, or could it be part of this particular motion with an amendment as one motion, because they were together?
You can do that.
Yes, you can do that. You can't make it greater, you can make it less, so.
Right.
So you're talking about making a motion to approve the height variance but deny the side yard setback variance? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that's what we were talking about there.
I
Okay.
would,
I
can
can
you,
amend my motion.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
You
Yes.
can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. LePan, yep.
It would be easier for you guys. I can just withdraw the side yard setback variance request. Like, can I just do that and just get the height and then, you know, pursue the lot line or something like that? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to cause you guys a lot of trouble, and I feel like I probably was not adequately prepared for the, which I apologize very much for, but I just don't know that I thought it would be a problem. And so I don't think that I, you know, talked to the barn company enough on that, and you know, whether, you know, if I had to ask for that like next month and gather some more information, that would be helpful to make the decision, you know, and or consider the possible split that, you know, that we talked about.
To answer your question, you may withdraw all or a portion of your variance application request. So it has to be your choice and your choice alone. But if you want to withdraw that portion of your variance request that seeks a 10-foot side yard setback variance, you can do that. And if you wanted to bring it back for the board at a later date, you could do that. I would caution you, however, that you would have to pay the application fee and go through all that again. But you're more than welcome to do that if that's your decision, and ask the board to pass upon the height variance tonight.
I think that's probably the wisest thing. Again, I do apologize for not, you know, I didn't think it would, you know, be, you know, be a problem. So I very much apologize. I just think I probably better gather some more information to present it better to you guys and not, you know, not use your time unwisely and stuff.
Well, don't ever apologize for not knowing all the rules. I mean, we don't expect you to know all the rules.
No, yeah, that's fine, Ms. LePan. Yeah, believe me, that it's not always easy to be 100% prepared. There's a lot of ordinances to know and whatnot, so can understand. So it sounds like you are wanting to formally withdraw the side yard setback variance request and proceed with just the height variance request at this point?
Yeah, I think that's the best.
Okay.
And
So then I guess
I
at
think
this
we could.
point- I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, we would probably then just be able to order the barn kit, but it's not going to be erected, you know, anyway. So, you know, it's gonna take a while to like build it. If we could just get going on building the kit, then I think your next meeting is July, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, then we could at least get it, the kit being started, but then, you know, await your approval for where it could actually be erected.
So it sounds like we could move forward with just considering the height variance request. Mr. Jenkins did make a motion for the height variance request. Mr. Steiner did support it. Unless there are any other friendly amendments or changes to the current motion, I think we're ready for a vote. Mrs. Rector?
Yes, I just wanted to let Ms. LePan know that the deadline for the July 6th meeting would be on June 15th by noon, and then it would publish again on June 19th if she would be looking to get on the next July meeting.
Okay, and I'm sorry, does that like cause you guys a lot of trouble? I don't know what, I don't want it to be trouble either way. Does that cause a lot of trouble to ask for it to come to another meeting, or?
No, we just have the deadlines to have it published in the paper, and we have to publish within 15 days to the meeting. That's why the deadline would be in June. That's why I wanted to make sure you were aware of the dates.
Okay, thank you.
It's no trouble at all. That is your right to do that if you choose. What I would recommend that you do is once you order the kit and what the orientation of your doors are going to be, call Mr. Kohler and with him and show him what you've got. And I think he would be very helpful in terms of helping you where to locate the barn on your property based upon the doors and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we still have the motion standing. The side yard setback variance has been removed from the request. Any amendments to Mr. Jenkins' motion at this point? If there is none, we are ready for a vote then on the motion.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Dersch?
Aye.
Mr. Lake?
Yes, thank you. The motion's approved, at least for the height variance, and then Ms. LePan, just work with the township on the next steps.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Welling. Yes, do we have another caller on the line here?
Yes.
Okay, and is this in regards to the public hearing regarding 2740 Concierge Road?
Correct.
Okay, all right. We'll go on to the next item of business then, and that is the public hearing regarding the appeal of Patricia Linden at 2740 Concierge Road, Lambertville, Michigan, requesting a 160 plus or minus foot frontage variance and a 2.98 plus or minus acreage variance. Okay, Ms. Kincaid, if you wouldn't mind reading us the information.
Yes, again, the applicant is Patricia Leiden, 2740 Concierge Road. Owner is the same. The variance location is 2800 Concierge Road, Lambertville, Michigan. 5.15 plus or minus acres agriculturally zoned. Joe Garbrick is authorized to speak on the applicant's behalf. The master plan designation suburban residential. This request was previously heard on May 1st, 2017, and the variance was unanimously approved by the board. Per the township assessor, a nearly complete land division application was filed by the property owner on 12/4/18, however, did not contain all the required information to process the application. On 9/13/19, per the assessor, the land division application was denied due to the amount of time that had passed and the inability to obtain the approval letter from the lender. In the submitted letter, the applicant explained the property transfer was not accomplished within the timeframe required by the township because the mortgage lender would not approve the replat, further stating the property has now been refinanced and a new lender has given its approval. The existing parcel consists of approximately 5.15 plus or minus acres with 170 feet of frontage on Concierge Road. The applicant is seeking to split the 5.15 plus or minus acre parcel into two parcels in an agricultural zoning district per section 400-1800 schedule of regulations. A minimum of 5 acres and 330 feet of frontage is required. It should be noted the parcel currently has 170 plus or minus feet of frontage, and a variance is not being sought to further reduce the current frontage. The applicant has submitted a letter stating one resulting parcel with the existing home will maintain the 170 feet of frontage on Concierge Road with 2.02 plus or minus acres, while the remaining portion of 2.98 plus or minus acres indicated by the applicant will be combined with the applicant's adjacent parcel to the east, which has an existing dwelling in this location of Indian Creek Zoo. The applicant has indicated the variance request is to supply additional parking for Indian Creek Zoo as there is no other reasonable alternative. Should the variance request be granted, the variances required are a 160 feet frontage variance, which is not reduced from the existing frontage, and a 2.98 acreage variance. At this time, no letters or calls of objection have been received. Mr. Chair, I would like to add, though, Mr. Wilson called me today and asked for some clarification because there were just some discrepancies in the depth of the property. What we have available to us now that we did not have at the time this letter was written are the surveys for the property, which provides us with additional information. While the frontage is still the same. In fact, the survey actually indicates there is greater frontage on the property. The depth now matches in that on the survey it identifies, and we do have a good meets and bounds legal description now where that wasn't available. The description was done in quarter sections. So what we have now is the frontage remaining the same. The depth of the first parcel, the one that will have frontage on Concierge Road, at 610 feet in depth. The home that is on the existing parcel will be 193 feet from the portion that is asked to be split off. So the parcel remaining would have 184 feet, which is greater than the 170 that we have, 610 feet in depth, for a total of 2.436 acres. And the parcel to the rear will then have 697.72 feet in depth. The variance request that was published does not exceed what is being sought, so we can move forward, and the variance published does cover the variance that's being sought. In fact, it's less than what was being sought. So we're in a good position that we're not exceeding the publication.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kincaid. And you said Mr. Garvick is representing the applicant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Garvick, is there anything else you'd like to add on top of what Ms. Kincaid has already provided to
No,
the group?
No, the only thing that was, we bought the house next door and didn't realize, the banking today, they sold the loan. And in the process of trying to find who bought the loan and get the okay, the loan was sold again. And at that point, we couldn't go no further. We weren't turned down. We couldn't figure out who owned it. And so we come and talked to Karen and just said, let's go to a local bank that's not going to sell our mortgage. And we did that and did the refi. And so nothing's changed over a year ago. We just needed more parking. And this property, when it gets hooked to the zoo, two sides of it is already touching the zoo property. And our neighbors don't have any issue with it. The parking lot's there. We just want to split it in case we sell the house someday.
Okay. You can describe it. I don't believe we've opened the public hearing yet. Would anyone like to make a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Let's get everyone to get a vote for yes on opening the public. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, public hearing is open. I don't know if we have any other callers on the line. If you'd like to make any comments on this, do we have any other callers on the line, Mr. Welling? Okay. All right, so we've got the public hearing open. Doesn't sound like we have any comments, so I'd be willing to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'll open this up to the group for a discussion. Is there anyone who'd like to ask any questions of the applicant or any other comments?
I think to help us all out too, as Ms. Kincaid said, the variance requests are actually less than first requested. So Karen, if you could please tell us the exact, what was 160 variance, what is that new number? And then the 2.98, I think you said 2.43 maybe? If you're talking, Karen, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry. We requested a 2.98 acreage variance. The actual variance required is 2.43 acre. I do want to verify that survey though, before I.
I think if I heard correctly, it might be in the upper 140s.
In our system, in the township, we have it at 170. It's actually 184.10.
Wider, my thought.
145.9.
Thank you.
And I would please add that if I don't know, Attorney Goldsmith, do we want to cut it to an exact, or do we want to continue to use the plus or minus frontage or an acreage?
We can go to the figure that we know or believe to be accurate and still use the plus or minus just to be on the safe side.
You know, when we bought the property and everything we had was 170, so it's kind of news to us that it's actually wider than what was established in that.
Mr. Garvick, I am only going by, if you feel more comfortable seeking the actual frontage that we have on record at the township, I am actually using the boundary survey and split that was provided by your surveyor to you and then provided to us. But our records at the township still show the 170 feet of frontage. So if you feel more comfortable,
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that, Karen. I was just kind of surprised.
Okay.
I'm fine with the survey. I'm sure it's accurate.
Just for a recap, I know the first time this was approved, I know myself and Mr. Dersh and Mr. Wilson were not on the board, the BZA at the time, just so we can reestablish kind of the practical difficulties here. You know, Mr. Garvick, more parking is needed back there for the zoo. Just for the record, if you could state what the requirement was for more parking.
Yeah, we don't have enough parking. We went from, when we opened it, this is the start of the 6th year. The first year we had 10,000 guests. Last year we had 80,000 guests, and this year we look like over 100,000 guests just since we've opened, and we opened a month late. With this, the parking lot and everything is there that we're talking about, and we just needed it because of the growth, and that gives us all the way back to keep putting stone and doing it, but it doesn't, I don't think, affect anybody in any way. And our neighbors come over when they got the letters and said, you know, remember the zoo and we like it, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. We need the growth and didn't realize we were going to need this much more parking. Today there was probably, you know, I'm guessing 250 cars there at a time, but with this that we already added on, just takes the pressure off the front yard and out in the front pasture and everything else.
Thanks. Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Yeah, Mr. Lake, I was on the zoning appeals back then, and a couple things. Number one, right now the parking lot being a dirt parking lot, and there's some areas back there that he could definitely use to improve the parking, so it's got a little bit more base to it. He does not have a lot of opportunity to go any place else for parking, so he's sort of tight in there. He's definitely not encroaching on any neighbors that's going to cause any site or issues with the parking itself. The zoo itself has, as he stated, is growing. It's really a wonderful place if nobody's ever been there, but the zoo does support this community, does a lot for the community, and I think that he's been a good neighbor basically to the neighborhood, and I think he's going to follow the regulations accordingly, and this will help him stay tighter within regulations by adding a more structured parking area.
Thank you, Mr. Steiner. If there's nothing else to be discussed, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the variance request at 2800 Concierge Road, Lambertville, Michigan, parcel number 5802-020-001-30, with the frontage variance originally requested at 160. With the actual survey, the variance request will now only be 145.9 plus or minus. The acreage variance was originally requested at 2.98 plus or minus, and the new acreage variance is actually reduced to 2.43 plus or minus. Per section 400.1800 scheduled regulations on this parcel, otherwise known as 2800 Concierge Road, the practical difficulty of being able to expand this parking area for the growth of the zoo. It's not invasive to surrounding parcels. There's no impact to direct surrounding parcels. And the location is also master planned as suburban residential. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Steiner. Do we have support?
I support it.
Thank you. Mrs. Kincaid, if you would call the roll, please.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Jenkins,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Dersch,
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye. All right. You're approved, Mr. Garvick. Thank you for attending. We'll
Thank
move
you,
on
guys.
now. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on to next item of business here, public comment. Mr. Welling, do we have anyone else on the line? Mr. Welling, just let us know once that time is up, and we'll move on there. Thank you, Mr. Welling. All right, we'll move on to board and staff comments. We'll start with the planning department, Ms. Kincaid and Ms. Rector, and we'll move from there.
Well, we may or may not have a meeting next month. We have not yet received any applications, but there was an indication this evening that there may be an application coming.
I have nothing.
Mr. Kohler? All right, he had a muted, yep, we read his lips. Mr. Goldsmith?
Nothing, thank you.
All right. Mr. Jenkins?
Nothing.
Mr. Steiner?
Nothing this evening.
Mr. Dersch?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Wilson?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Nothing for me either. So we will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.